All right, and welcome to day 16. Today's mantra is sing, dance, create art. It's about the creative side of you, obviously, but it's interesting because what we've discovered is that the creative side is necessary for innovation. So, when we talk about STEAM now, science, technology, engineering, and math, they've put an A in there and they, instead of calling it STEM, they call it STEAM. So science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So today we're focusing on the arts section of it. I want to give you an example. My son is half Chinese and his cousins are from Hong Kong. And so when he was a very young child, he was raised in America, and we have this sense of individuality. We have this sense of kind of a wild, adventurous spirit Americans are known for. And of course, the Chinese are known for community and for adherence to, social norms, that sort of thing. So when my son was in kindergarten, he was about a year and a half older than his cousin, who was in preschool. And during one of our meals, I gave my son a blank piece of paper and some crayons, and he scribbled. During that same meal, the Hong Kong relatives gave their son a blank piece of paper and a pencil and asked him to do his times tables up to 12 in perfect penmanship. After the meal, we went downstairs and there's a little tiny merry-go-round. It was in Chinatown in Los Angeles. And there was a little tiny merry-go-round. So they all sat on these little merry-go-round. It's a little one. And my son immediately, like after second or third time it went around, it wasn't exciting enough for him. And so he climbed out and he climbed up on top of the merry-go-round. And of course, the other kids were looking up at their mother and they were like, can we do that too? And, she kind of looked at them very sternly, like, no, she didn't even have to say it. She just gave him the look. And they didn't do it, but they were looking up at Davis like, oh, I wish I could be doing that. Now, you might think, oh, well, Natalie, you shouldn't have let him do that. That's so dangerous. Blah. It wasn't. It's a little tiny carousel. It's maybe 3 feet off the ground. It's not that tall. So it wasn't dangerous. And it's just an example of the way that parenting is thought of very different in a very free society versus a society that wants to have cultural norms be the most important thing. So in China, family and community is much more important than individual. In America, individualism is really celebrated. And the difference in those cultures means that in America, we have more inventions and inventors and patents. And, when you think about the things that have pushed society forward, a great deal of them, especially in the last, half century, have come out of American business leaders, American entrepreneurs. The Chinese are very good at copying it, maybe even sometimes making it better. But a lot of the inventions are still coming and the innovations are still coming out of America. So this is not to say anything against the Chinese because they have their strengths too. And I do not want this to be a cultural competition here. I think that each culture has things that they value greatly. And, you can either choose to embrace that or not. That's kind of why we have family and chosen family. Or, sometimes people stay in the same town forever. And sometimes people move to a place that calls to their soul. So there is a saying that every soul has her own geography. So each, this is a diverse planet. We are diverse sapiens. And there is an area of the world that's right for you. And it's interesting, it might evolve over time. But back to today's task is the value of singing and dancing and creating art and scribbling outside the lines and climbing up on top of the carousel instead of sitting quietly inside the carousel. It's about that A in STEAM is that you want to stop the rational mind sometimes and turn on the creative mind. It's interesting because William Blake always said that imagination was more like a divine inspiration. So how do you get divine inspiration? How do you receive messages from out of your own little small thinking mind and into the great wisdom of the galaxies? Well, it's funny because as a younger writer, I was talking with someone who was a very successful uh, and had been doing it for a very long time, very successfully writer. And, I said, I sit in my room and I put, and I write, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, Natalie, if you want to be a good writer, put a folded piece of paper in your pocket, take a pen and go out and live life, because that's where the real stories are, not in your room. It was the best piece of advice. Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way. Go out and see every single day, recognize 3 things that are unusual. Well, dancing and singing and creating art, these are things that are abnormal to your routine. These are things that invite in whimsy, and wisdom of the galaxies sometimes comes smashing in. So now, even if I have a speaking engagement, what I do is I think about it at night before I go to sleep, and I keep my memo pad, which is now on the iPhone because it's easier just to dictate. I keep that next to me. And, I usually wake up in the middle of the night and, without even really waking up and without turning on lights, just fumble for my phone, speak into it. And the whole speech comes out like a download. Um, and that's because I'm very in tune with how to download wisdom of the divine. Now, you may think that sounds very, very woo-woo, and maybe it is, or maybe it's very scientific. Maybe all I'm doing is turning off the small repetitive noise that constantly filters throughout my brain. And by turning that off, what I'm turning on is some of the deeper wisdom that I've observed that has been filed into my brain categories, but maybe isn't called up in all the daily quotidian tasks. So whatever you want to call it, I don't think that it's good to sideline the idea that there is a deeper wisdom than what we access every day. And part of the ways to get there is going to be outside of sitting and doing, sitting and repeating, or something that feels right, doing the right thing. It's not doing the wrong thing. It is having fun, really, and in artistic ways. So I like to dance tango, and part of that is that it's completely intuition by the woman. In fact, if you close your eyes and you just follow the lead and the intuition of it, it's really a good exercise for turning off the rational side of your brain and allowing the creative side and the intuitive side and even the feeling side to take priority. So today, whether it's tango dancing look, you can get tango lessons online. I know in the pandemic, we all have to be very creative, but you can get really good tango lessons online. You could try it with your partner. In fact, women can dance tango with women, men can dance with men. It's not at all, anything that's, it's normal is what I mean to say. In today's world, we shouldn't have anything that feels abnormal. In my view, you might feel differently, but it doesn't have any connotation to it if men are dancing with men or women are dancing with women, because the beauty of the dance itself is something that every person is trying to perfect. So in a dance class, men will often teach men. And in fact, they'll say that if you if you allow yourself to try to dance as a follower, then it's easier for you to understand how to be a better lead. So they do it to be a better dancer, and vice versa. I've never been a very good lead in tango, but I haven't really practiced it that much. Anyway, so back to the task at hand today. So think, sing, dance, create art. You can actually think that all day long. You could be whistling while you work. On the way to work, you could sing a song, you could sing in the shower, you can dance a little jig, you can just do these things and now value it all day long. Just think, putting the A in STEM, putting the A in STEAM, and accessing my creative brain. I'm stopping the the daily habits, the constant noise, the repetitive actions that I do, the repetitive thoughts that come in, the noise of the out exterior world, which is very little to do with wisdom and a lot to do with just noise. And this is part of creating prosperity and abundance consciousness, and the best you, who can attract the best partners, both in sacred unions and sacred partnerships, and also start up that path to living your best life, because you're living the life of your dreams, because you're here to do what you're supposed to do, which you can do better than anybody else. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you tomorrow.